The tranquil azure of the Aegean Sea, a timeless expanse of cerulean and sapphire, belies the dark currents that sometimes churn beneath its surface. It was here, amidst the sun-drenched islands and ancient myths, that a nightmare began for a young woman named Maria. In 2013, the Greek cruise ship industry, a vibrant artery of the nation's tourism, was a magnet for those seeking adventure and opportunity. Maria, just 22, was one of them. She hailed from a small, unassuming town, her eyes alight with the promise of a life beyond the familiar. A job as a waitress on a party cruise ship, the MV Aegean Queen, was not merely employment. It was a passport to a dream, a chance to explore the world, to send money home, to carve out a future brighter than her past. The Aegean Queen itself was a floating celebration, a vessel designed for revelry, its decks teeming with laughter, music, and the intoxicating scent of possibility. Hundreds of young people, much like Maria, flocked to its vibrant atmosphere, ready to serve, entertain, and perhaps find their own slice of paradise. Yet, paradise, as history so often teaches us, can be a fragile illusion. For Maria, that illusion would shatter with a brutal finality, leaving behind a void that no amount of sunshine or sea breeze could ever fill. Her story, initially one of hopeful ambition, would tragically morph into a chilling, unsolved mystery, etched into the collective memory of a nation and a family left to grapple with an agonizing absence. The vast, indifferent sea, a silent witness to countless voyages, would hold her secrets close, offering no solace, no explanation, only an endless expanse of blue that swallowed her whole. What could possibly have transpired aboard a ship teeming with life, where every corner seemed to echo with joyous abandon? How could a person, vibrant and full of dreams, simply vanish without a trace, leaving behind only questions and an unbearable ache in the hearts of those who loved her? The initial narrative, spun by the cruise line and later echoed in hushed tones across the docks, spoke of a possible accident, a misstep in the vastness of the ocean, a tragic but ultimately unpreventable twist of fate. But the truth, as it slowly began to unfurl, would prove far more sinister, far more deliberate, and infinitely more devastating than any accidental tragedy could ever be. The Aegean, with its ancient whispers of gods and heroes, was about to become the stage for a modern-day enigma, a tale of disappearance that would confound investigators and haunt a family for years to come. Maria's embarkation on the Aegean Queen was a moment of quiet triumph for her family, a testament to her hard work and determination. They saw her off with a mixture of pride and a gentle apprehension, the universal fear of parents watching their child venture into the unknown. They never could have imagined the chilling premonition that would soon settle over them, a suffocating blanket of dread that would grow heavier with each passing, silent day. The ship's initial voyages passed without incident, filled with the expected routines of work and the occasional exuberance of youth. Maria, by all accounts, was diligent, friendly, and well-liked by her colleagues. She sent cheerful messages home, describing the breathtaking sunsets over the Cycladic Islands and the camaraderie among the crew. These dispatches, once sources of comfort and joy, would later become poignant echoes of a life abruptly cut short, each word a painful reminder of what was lost. The photographs she sent, capturing moments of genuine happiness against the backdrop of an endless summer, now serve as ghostly mementos, freezing a smile that would soon be extinguished forever. The Aegean, vast and indifferent, held her secrets close, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal its cruel hand. Her family, rooted in their small town, clung to every message, every photo, every assurance that Maria was thriving. They believed in the dream, in the promise of the sea, never anticipating the storm that was brewing far from their peaceful shores, a storm that would engulf their daughter and leave them adrift in a sea of grief and unanswered questions. The cruise ship, a microcosm of transient lives and fleeting connections, sailed on, oblivious to the impending heartbreak. And as the days turned into weeks, the initial optimism surrounding Maria's new adventure began to curdle into a chilling unease, a silent alarm bell that only her family seemed to hear. The stage was set, the players in motion, for a tragedy that would defy easy explanation and plunge all those connected to it into a vortex of suspicion and despair. What truly happened to Maria aboard the Aegean Queen? The answer, elusive and harrowing, awaited discovery, hidden somewhere between the glittering facade of a party cruise and the dark, fathomless depths of the Aegean Sea. The initial distress call, a terse burst of static across the radio waves, arrived on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday morning. Maria had not reported for a shift, a minor oversight, perhaps, in the bustling labyrinth of a cruise ship. But when repeated calls to her cabin went unanswered, a ripple of concern began to spread among the crew. This was not like Maria. Her diligence was well known. A quick search of her immediate working areas yielded nothing. The captain was informed, and protocol dictated a more thorough sweep of the ship. Cabins were checked, staff questioned, every communal area meticulously scoured. Yet, Maria was nowhere to be found. The ship's security footage, a sprawling network of cameras designed to capture every moment, every interaction, quickly became the focal point of the nascent investigation. What would it reveal? A late-night rendezvous? A clandestine departure? Or something far more unsettling? The grainy black and white images played out like a silent film, each frame scrutinized for any clue, any anomaly that might explain Maria's sudden vanishing. She was last seen on camera during the late hours of Monday night, walking alone along a deserted corridor on Deck 7, her silhouette receding into the digital gloom. And then nothing. Her image simply ceased to appear. It was as if she had walked off the face of the earth, or, more accurately, off the ship itself. The chilling thought hung heavy in the air. Had she fallen overboard? The possibility, though horrifying, was the easiest explanation to grasp, a tragic accident on a vast, unforgiving sea. But no witness had reported seeing anything. No splash, no cry for help. The ocean, typically quick to give up its secrets when a person is lost, remained stubbornly silent. Her family, miles away, received the news with a collective gasp of disbelief, quickly followed by a cold dread that settled deep in their bones. The initial communication from the cruise line was carefully worded, emphasizing the ongoing search, the uncertainty, the hope for a positive outcome. But beneath the polite assurances, a terrifying reality began to take root. Maria was missing. The Hellenic Coast Guard was immediately notified, and a massive search and rescue operation was launched. Helicopters crisscrossed the choppy waters, their powerful spotlights piercing the pre-dawn darkness. Patrol boats sliced through the waves, their crews scanning the vast expanse for any sign, any scrap of evidence. The search extended for days, encompassing hundreds of square miles of the Aegean. Yet, despite the immense resources deployed and the relentless efforts of seasoned professionals, nothing was found. No life raft, no piece of clothing, no debris that could be definitively linked to Maria. The sea, vast and indifferent, offered no clues, no solace. It swallowed her whole, leaving behind only the rhythmic lapping of waves against the hull of the Aegean Queen and the deafening silence of absence. The lack of any tangible evidence began to shift the narrative. If it wasn't an accident, what then? The investigators, seasoned in the complexities of maritime law and human behavior, began to consider darker possibilities. Was there foul play? Had someone on board targeted Maria? The Aegean Queen, once a symbol of carefree escapism, began to feel like a floating prison, a stage for an unfolding drama with no easy answers. The passengers, initially unaware of the unfolding tragedy, were eventually informed of a medical emergency that had necessitated the search operation. The crew, however, knew the truth, and a palpable tension settled over the ship. Whispers traveled through the galley, hushed conversations in the crew quarters. Everyone was a potential witness, or, chillingly, a potential suspect. The vastness of the sea, once a symbol of freedom, now loomed as an accomplice, guarding its secrets with an impenetrable silence. Maria's family, reeling from the initial shock, became an unwavering force, their grief morphing into a fierce determination to find answers. They pleaded with the authorities, contacted anyone who would listen, refusing to accept the narrative of a simple, tragic accident. They knew Maria. They knew her strength, her cautious nature. The idea of her carelessly falling overboard seemed inherently wrong, a betrayal of the vibrant, purposeful young woman they knew. They demanded more, sensed something deeper, something darker, at play. And as the sun continued its relentless arc across the Aegean sky, the mystery of Maria's disappearance deepened, twisting itself into an ever more intricate knot of unanswered questions and profound sorrow. The early days of the investigation, marked by frantic searching and dwindling hope, were merely the prologue to a far more complex and troubling story. As the weeks bled into months, and the initial frantic search for Maria yielded no results, the narrative of a tragic accident began to feel increasingly hollow. The Hellenic Coast Guard, after exhausting all plausible avenues of maritime search and rescue, officially concluded their active operations. While the file remained open, the immediate urgency waned, leaving Maria's family adrift in a sea of bureaucratic procedure and agonizing uncertainty. They refused to surrender, their maternal and paternal instincts screaming that something was fundamentally wrong with the official story. Maria, they insisted, was not one to simply disappear without a trace. Their pleas for a more thorough, deeper investigation grew louder, their voices echoing with a raw, desperate grief that pierced through the official pronouncements. It was during this period of agonizing limbo that a new, unsettling piece of information surfaced, a shard of unexpected truth that would shatter the facade of a simple accident and expose a far more disturbing reality. An anonymous tip, delivered to a local journalist, spoke of an incident aboard the Aegean Queen just days before Maria vanished. It was a hushed rumor, initially dismissed as gossip among the crew, but its content was chilling. An altercation between Maria and a senior crew member, a man known for his volatile temper, and, as later whispers would confirm, a history of inappropriate behavior with female staff. The journalist, sensing a deeper story, began to dig, meticulously piecing together fragments of information from current and former crew members, who, emboldened by the prospect of anonymity, slowly began to speak. They painted a picture of a hierarchy rife with unspoken power dynamics, where certain individuals held sway, and where complaints from junior staff often fell on deaf ears. Maria, it was revealed, had indeed confronted this senior crew member, whose name began to circulate with increasing frequency. Captain Demetrius, a man whose charm was often overshadowed by an undercurrent of aggression. The nature of their disagreement remained vague in the initial reports, but the underlying tension was undeniable. Some spoke of a dispute over working conditions. Others hinted at something more personal, a boundary crossed, a line overstepped. Regardless of the precise catalyst, the confrontation was significant enough to have drawn attention, even amidst the constant hum of a party cruise ship. This new lead fundamentally shifted the direction of the investigation. No longer was Maria's disappearance a mere maritime accident. It was now a potential crime, a deeply personal vanishing act with a human perpetrator. The local police, initially deferential to the Coast Guard's jurisdiction in maritime incidents, were now compelled to re-engage with renewed vigor. The Aegean Queen, once viewed as a mere location, transformed into a potential crime scene. Investigators returned to the ship, no longer searching for a body, but for evidence, for clues to a narrative far darker than a simple fall overboard. Every detail of Maria's life on board was re-examined. Her friendships, her conversations, her movements, her emotional state in the days leading up to her disappearance, all became critical pieces of a rapidly expanding puzzle. Had she confided in anyone about her concerns regarding Captain Demetrius? Had anyone witnessed the altercation or its aftermath? The crew, initially hesitant to speak, now faced renewed pressure, their silence potentially implicating them in a cover-up. The ship's logs, once mundane records of port calls and provisions, were meticulously scrutinized for any irregularities, any gaps in the official account. The captain, previously treated as a figure of authority, was now a person of intense interest, his every action and statement subjected to rigorous scrutiny. His alibi, initially robust, began to fray under the weight of mounting suspicion and conflicting testimonies. The revelation of this altercation was a seismic shift, injecting a potent dose of suspicion and urgency into a case that had teetered on the brink of fading into obscurity. It validated Maria's family's persistent gut feeling, their unwavering belief that their daughter had not simply vanished without cause. The search for Maria was no longer about battling the elements. It was about confronting human darkness, about unraveling a truth deliberately obscured. The vast, indifferent Aegean, which had once seemed an accomplice to a tragic accident, now became a silent, brooding witness to a potential crime, its waves perhaps carrying the whispers of injustice. The family's fight for answers had just truly begun, and the path ahead promised to be fraught with challenges, betrayals, and a lingering shadow of a truth yet to be fully uncovered. With the ominous shadow of Captain Demetrius now looming over the investigation, the search for Maria transformed from a quest for a lost soul into a meticulous forensic examination of a potential crime scene. Investigators descended upon the Aegean Queen once more, this time with a far more aggressive and targeted approach. They weren't merely looking for signs of an accident. They were searching for evidence of foul play, for the deliberate removal of a young woman from the ship, and, perhaps, from existence itself. The focus sharpened on Captain Demetrius, a man whose professional demeanor now seemed to mask a dangerous volatile streak. His cabin, his office, and the areas he frequented were subjected to intense scrutiny. Every member of the crew, particularly those who had worked closely with Maria or witnessed the alleged altercation, was re-interviewed, this time with a heightened sense of urgency and suspicion. The initial reluctance to speak, born of fear or loyalty, slowly began to erode under sustained pressure. Witnesses, previously timid, started to offer fragments of information, hushed observations, and unsettling anecdotes about the captain's behavior. Stories emerged of his short temper, his controlling nature, and a pattern of aggressive advances towards female staff. The picture being painted was not of a respected leader, but of a man with a dark side, capable of intimidation and perhaps worse. The ship's surveillance system, initially a frustratingly incomplete puzzle, now became an invaluable tool for reconstruction. While Maria's final moments on camera remained elusive, investigators began to meticulously cross-reference footage from other cameras around Deck 7 and adjacent areas. They painstakingly charted the movements of Captain Demetrius in the hours leading up to and immediately following Maria's last confirmed sighting. What they discovered was deeply troubling. There were unexplained gaps in his recorded movements, periods when he was conspicuously absent from areas where he should have been, or when his presence coincided suspiciously with the time of Maria's disappearance. One specific instance stood out: a segment of footage from a rarely used service corridor, located just meters from where Maria was last seen, showed Captain Demetrius making a hasty exit, carrying what appeared to be a large, dark duffel bag, roughly an hour after Maria's last confirmed appearance. The bag's contents were impossible to discern, and his hurried pace suggested an attempt to avoid detection. It was a fleeting, almost imperceptible detail, but in the context of a missing person, it screamed suspicion. This footage, initially overlooked in the broad sweeps of the first investigation, now became a linchpin, a visual smoking gun that pointed an accusatory finger directly at the captain. Further interviews with maintenance staff revealed an even more unsettling detail: a specific external access door on Deck 7, one rarely used by passengers or junior crew, had been found slightly ajar on the morning Maria was reported missing. Its lock, usually secure, showed signs of having been tampered with or forced open. This door, leading directly to the ship's stern, offered a discreet and unmonitored pathway to the open sea. It was a chilling implication, a possible exit point, a silent gateway to the unfathomable depths. The meticulous work of forensic experts was then brought to bear. DNA samples were collected from Maria's cabin, from Captain Demetrius's quarters, and from the suspicious service corridor. Every surface was dusted for fingerprints, every fiber analyzed. While no direct evidence of a violent struggle was immediately found in Maria's cabin, subtle disturbances hinted at a confrontation or a hasty departure. A small, delicate pendant, a gift from her mother, was discovered tucked beneath her mattress, something she never removed. It was a silent testament to a departure not of her own free will. The weight of these accumulating discoveries, the anonymous tip, the corroborated testimonies of hostile behavior, the suspicious camera footage, the tampered door, and the poignant presence of her untouched pendant, began to form an undeniable pattern. The hypothesis of a tragic accident was not merely weakened, it was utterly dismantled. A new, far more horrific picture began to emerge. Maria had not simply fallen. She had been taken, and Captain Demetrius, the man once entrusted with the safety of his passengers and crew, was now unequivocally the prime suspect in her disappearance. The sea, once a symbol of freedom, now loomed as a silent accomplice to a crime of unimaginable cruelty. The truth, meticulously excavated from a mountain of lies and evasions, was beginning to surface, stark and brutal, threatening to shatter the tranquil image of the Aegean queen and expose the darkness that festered beneath its polished decks. The investigation had moved beyond speculation, propelled by irrefutable evidence towards a chilling, unavoidable conclusion. The pieces of Maria's vanishing, once scattered like flotsam across the Aegean, began to coalesce into a horrifying narrative, leaving little doubt that her disappearance was no accident. The mounting evidence against Captain Demetrius was compelling, each new detail tightening the net around him. Under intense questioning, his composure, initially unwavering, began to crack. His carefully constructed alibis crumbled under the weight of conflicting testimonies and irrefutable forensic data. The anonymous tip, which had sparked this deeper investigation, was eventually traced back to a courageous former crew member, a young woman who had endured similar, unsettling experiences with the captain and, fueled by a desire for justice, had decided to speak out. Her testimony, coupled with others, painted a consistent picture of a man who abused his authority, preying on junior staff, especially young women, with a menacing blend of charm and intimidation. This pattern of behavior, chillingly, provided a motive, an underlying context for the escalation of his interaction with Maria. Further forensic examination of the suspicious duffel bag seen in the security footage, though the bag itself was never recovered, led to a startling discovery. A microscopic trace of biological material, a single hair strand, was found clinging to the edge of the service corridor door frame, the very door Captain Demetrius had used. DNA analysis confirmed it belonged to Maria. This tiny, almost invisible piece of evidence spoke volumes, linking Maria directly to the captain's clandestine movements and shattering any remaining pretense of an accidental fall. It was the irrefutable proof the investigators needed, a silent scream from the depths of the Aegean, confirming the worst fears of Maria's family. The timeline of Maria's final hours was meticulously reconstructed. It was theorized that Maria, after a shift, had encountered Captain Demetrius, possibly due to a summons or a chance meeting. The confrontation, previously hinted at, had likely escalated, perhaps culminating in an act of violence. The duffel bag, seen in the footage, was no longer just a suspicious item. It was the likely vessel for Maria's body, carried through the service corridor and disposed of discreetly from the stern of the ship into the dark, churning waters of the Aegean. The tampered lock on the external door, once a perplexing anomaly, now served as a stark testament to the captain's desperate attempt to cover his tracks, to make Maria's body vanish without a trace. The vastness of the sea, once seen as an indifferent force, had been weaponized, used as an ultimate hiding place. The profound silence that followed her disappearance, the lack of any debris or signs of struggle in the ocean, was now grimly understood as the success of a calculated, cold-blooded act. The motive, while never fully articulated by Demetrius, emerged as a confluence of factors: his volatile temper, his abusive control over subordinates, and perhaps a desperate attempt to silence Maria after she had potentially threatened to expose his inappropriate conduct. Maria, a young woman of principle, might have stood up to him, a defiance that proved fatal. The discovery of the pendant under her mattress, never found on her person, was another haunting detail. It suggested a struggle, a moment of terror when a cherished possession was lost in the chaos of a violent encounter. It was a silent cry for help, a lingering echo of her last moments aboard the Aegean Queen. The weight of this evidence, painstakingly gathered and meticulously analyzed, left no room for doubt. Maria had been murdered, and her body cast into the Aegean by Captain Demetrius. The captain was arrested, the charge unequivocal: murder. The once glittering facade of the Aegean Queen had been stripped away, revealing a dark underbelly, a place where dreams could turn to nightmares, and where the human capacity for evil could flourish even amidst the most beautiful of settings. The truth, though agonizing, brought a grim form of closure to Maria's family, replacing the unbearable uncertainty with a harrowing, undeniable certainty. The Aegean, which had held her secrets so tightly, had finally begun to whisper them to the surface, bringing forth a tale of profound tragedy and a shocking betrayal of trust. The arrest of Captain Demetrius sent shockwaves through the Greek maritime community and reverberated across the globe. News outlets, initially focused on the tragic disappearance, now reported with grim fascination on the unfolding murder investigation. The image of the Aegean Queen, once a symbol of idyllic cruises, was irrevocably tainted, forever linked to the chilling fate of Maria. For Maria's family, the arrest brought a bittersweet sense of justice mixed with an enduring, profound grief. The confirmation of murder, though horrific, finally allowed them to mourn without the gnawing uncertainty that had plagued them for so long. Yet, the absence of Maria's body remained an open wound, a constant ache that no conviction could ever truly heal. They yearned for a final resting place, a tangible point of remembrance for their beloved daughter. The trial of Captain Demetrius was a highly publicized affair, drawing national attention. Prosecutors meticulously presented their case, weaving together the anonymous tip, the corroborated testimonies of crew members, the damning security footage, the tampered door lock, and the single, heartbreaking hair strand. Each piece of evidence was a hammer blow, dismantling the captain's denials and exposing the calculated brutality of his actions. Demetrius, maintaining a cold, unyielding silence for much of the proceedings, offered no confession, no remorse, only a stony defiance that served to further infuriate Maria's family and the public. His defense, based on insufficient evidence and circumstantial conjecture, proved futile against the mountain of accumulated proof. The jury, after weeks of emotional testimony and forensic detail, returned a unanimous verdict: guilty of murder. The sentence was swift and severe: life imprisonment, a measure of justice, however incomplete, for the life he had so cruelly extinguished. Yet, even with the conviction, a profound sense of incompleteness lingered. Maria's body was never recovered. The vastness of the Aegean Sea, her final resting place, continued to hold its secrets. Despite numerous subsequent searches, both official and privately funded, the ocean refused to yield its precious cargo. This enduring absence meant that Maria's family could never perform the traditional rites of passage, never lay her to rest, never say a final goodbye to her physical presence. The sea, a beautiful but indifferent entity, had become both her tomb and her monument, a silent, swirling reminder of what was lost. The legacy of Maria's case extended far beyond the courtroom. It became a catalyst for change within the cruise industry, prompting a re-evaluation of security protocols, crew oversight, and the handling of harassment complaints. New regulations were proposed and implemented, designed to protect vulnerable staff and ensure greater transparency in the event of any incident at sea. The Hellenic Coast Guard also revised its search and rescue procedures, emphasizing the need for immediate, comprehensive investigations in cases of suspected foul play, even when maritime accidents were initially presumed. Maria's story, a tragedy born of ambition and trust, became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that even in the most seemingly idyllic settings, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. Her memory lives on, not just as a victim, but as a symbol of the fight for justice, a young woman whose brief life sparked a profound shift in awareness and protection for those who, like her, sought opportunity on the open seas. The Aegean Queen itself underwent significant changes, eventually being renamed and sold to another cruise line, as if to shed the tragic weight of its past. But the echoes of Maria's story, the whispers of what transpired on Deck 7, continue to haunt its legacy. The Aegean Sea, shimmering under the same sun that shone on Maria's last day, rolls on, an eternal expanse of beauty and mystery. It holds within its depths the answer to where Maria lies, forever guarding the secret of her final resting place. And while justice was served, the quiet tragedy of Maria's unrecovered body remains a poignant testament to the ultimate power of the sea, a reminder that some mysteries, even those solved by human hands, can never be fully brought to light, leaving a permanent shadow over the hearts of those left behind. Maria, the hopeful girl who boarded the Aegean Queen with dreams in her eyes, became a haunting testament to the vulnerabilities of those who seek their fortune far from home, a silent guardian against the insidious darkness that can hide in plain sight. The passage of time, while it dulls the sharp edges of immediate grief, can never fully erase the deep gouges left by an unsolved mystery and an unrecovered life. For Maria's family, the conviction of Captain Demetrius brought a form of legal closure, but the emotional wound of her absence remained raw and unyielding. The Aegean Sea, vast and glittering, continued its relentless rhythm, a beautiful but agonizingly silent tomb. They visited the coastal towns, gazing out at the endless blue, imagining Maria's last moments, perpetually searching the horizon for a sign that would never come. This yearning for a final resting place, a physical anchor for their grief, became a central, enduring pain. Without a grave, without a ceremony of farewell, Maria's spirit seemed to linger, caught between worlds, never fully at peace for those who loved her most. Her mother, in particular, carried the burden with an almost unbearable weight, her once vibrant eyes now perpetually shadowed by sorrow. She would speak of Maria as if she were still just away on a long voyage, her voice thick with unshed tears, her hands clutching a worn photograph of her daughter's smiling face. The small pendant, found beneath Maria's mattress, became a sacred relic, a tangible link to her, held close and cherished as the last piece of her physical presence. The ramifications of Maria's case rippled far beyond her immediate family, touching the lives of countless young individuals drawn to the allure of cruise ship work. It sparked a necessary, albeit painful, reevaluation of working conditions, crew safety, and the often unseen power dynamics aboard these floating cities. Stories, once whispered in hushed tones, began to emerge into the light, tales of intimidation, harassment, and the silent struggles faced by those far from home and vulnerable to exploitation. Whistleblowers, emboldened by Maria's story and the eventual conviction, came forward, shedding light on systemic issues that had long been swept under the pristine decks of the industry. Legal reforms, influenced directly by the tragic precedent of Maria's disappearance, were pushed through, demanding stricter oversight, clearer reporting mechanisms for misconduct, and greater protections for crew members. The cruise lines themselves were compelled to implement more robust training programs, conduct more thorough background checks, and establish independent channels for reporting grievances without fear of reprisal. Maria's tragedy, therefore, was not in vain. Her story, a harrowing tapestry woven with ambition, terror, and the unwavering pursuit of justice, became a beacon for change, a poignant reminder that human dignity and safety must never be sacrificed for profit or unchecked authority. The Aegean Queen, though renamed and sailing under different colors, carried with it the indelible stain of Maria's last voyage. It served as a silent, powerful testament to the fact that beauty and horror can coexist, that beneath the veneer of luxury and escapism, profound darkness can take root. The sea, a timeless witness to human endeavor and folly, continues its relentless churn, its waves breaking upon the shores of Greece with an eternal whisper. It guards the ultimate secret of Maria's fate, her body forever lost to its embrace. But her spirit and the memory of her dreams live on, not just in the hearts of her grieving family, but in the strengthened protections and heightened awareness that her sacrifice ultimately inspired. Maria's name, once etched on a missing person poster, is now carved into the collective consciousness as a symbol of resilience, a poignant reminder that even in the face of unspeakable tragedy, the pursuit of truth and justice can forge a path toward a safer, more accountable world. The Aegean, in its vast, indifferent majesty, holds her, but her story, a powerful current of warning and hope, continues to flow, touching lives and inspiring change, ensuring that her disappearance was not merely an ending, but a profound and lasting beginning for others.